Welcome to our special OTT March Madness special. It's a lot of specials. We're talking about the NCAA Tournament. Everybody filling out their office brackets, making their picks. All I know is, I'll share this with you guys right off the bat, there's two certainties of the NCAA Tournament every year. When you're filling out your bracket, there's two things you need to know. Number one, make sure you pick a 12-5 upset. There's always going to be one of those. The second, never trust Purdue. I don't care what you think you know about the Boilermakers. Purdue will disappoint you. I don't think the team's been past the Elite Eight since like 1939 or something like that.
Since World War II.
Yeah, World War II. Yeah. Don't trust Purdue to make a run. I don't care what you say. Somebody on this panel probably picked Purdue to make a Final Four. I think that's a mistake. We'll get into that in a little bit.
Oh man,
I think first and foremost we want to talk about the top of the bracket. When you look at the one seeds, I know a lot of people like Alabama. That's a team that I really don't trust right now, simply because of the shooting that happened in Vegas. I know it really hasn't thrown off the way the team is played, but I think they're missing key pieces of that team, and I think it's going to catch up to them eventually.
Well, the guy who handed off the gun, he wasn't really a big-time player. The big player is Brandon Miller, who's been unbelievable this season. Yeah. He's been
top 5 NBA pick.
Yeah, done really well, and he's continued to do well, even though he's faced all of these comments from fans, from opposing fan bases, from the media, dealing with all this criticism. He's been really good, and I actually have Alabama winning it all. So that's a little sneak peek of what my Final Four looks like, but I got Bama winning it all. I think he's the best player in the country, and he's been on the best team all season long. So I think they're going to and their side of the bracket's easy. The 2-seed Zona, 3-seed is Baylor. Baylor hasn't been the greatest this year. I think their side of the bracket, they should coast to the Final Four easily.
I think they got a pretty good trip. I've got them in the Final Four too, and I think if you look at Bama right now through the SEC tournament, they just blew through that thing. And I know that doesn't always weigh super heavily on how teams go. But the SEC was really strong this year. The SEC a lot of times is pretty top heavy. You got the Kentucky, you got the in past years the Floridas. This year Alabama's really strong. Arkansas is pretty good. They got a lot of teams. I think them and the Big Ten both had 8 teams in. So it's very strong top to bottom, and I think Alabama just the way they cruised on through the SEC really bodes well for them. I don't have them winning at all, but I do have them pretty far.
Speaking of the Big Ten, most of our viewing audience knows the Big Ten pretty well. Rutgers was the team a lot of people wanted to get into the NCAA tournament. If you haven't heard, not only did the Scarlet Knights not get in, they were a 1 seed or 2 seed in the NIT, one and done. Yeah. Immediately lost that first game at home, no less. So Rutgers is done playing postseason basketball. But teams like Northwestern that you don't see in the NCAA tournament all that often got in. Penn State got a bid. Obviously, Michigan State's in, Purdue's in, Illinois is in. The Big Ten has horses, but the Big Ten really doesn't go very far in the tournament lately. And I don't think, you really look at this team, some people, like I said, like Purdue, I don't think there's a Big Ten team in there that's going to make an Elite Eight.
No, I don't really trust, a lot of years the Big Ten is deep from top to bottom. This year, I don't really trust the middle to the bottom of the Big Ten. The top, as we mentioned, we don't really even trust the top, when it comes to Purdue. I've actually I know Northwestern, this is only, their second tournament ever, I think. I've got them bounced in the first round. I got Boise State with the upset in that game. I think Penn State gets the upset in their game, though. I do like the way they're playing, watching them just march through the Big Ten tournament. Then they ran into the steamroller that was Purdue at the end. Always tough to match up with a guy in Zach Edey with that much size that Penn State doesn't have. So, but I do have them pulling the upside. I think that's a 7-10 game.
Yep.
A&M
Penn State.
And Penn State's a 10. I think they get the upset there. But yeah, I don't have I don't have any Big Ten teams to the Final Four, and I have a couple upsets. So.
Yeah, certainly not to the Final Four. Like I said, I don't have any going to the Elite Eight. I know Sweet 16 is inevitable based off of just the brackets, but I don't look at the league as that strong this year. I mean, internally they battle each other, but once they have to go against the rest of the country, I don't see the Big Ten making noise.
My only point is, all right, we have to bring up Purdue lost to St. Peter's last year in the Sweet 16. So the Peacocks went to the Elite Eight, which was an unprecedented run for the 15 seed to make it that far. Yeah. But who is going to guard Zach Edey? He's the best player. I know I just mentioned Brandon Miller, but Zach Edey, he's probably going to be the consensus National Player of the Year. He's been the best player all season long. He's a 7'4" massive human being. The Big Ten, they're used to guarding him. when other teams come and play them, they've never played against a guy like that before. How are they going to fare against a guy like that? I just don't know how it's going to happen. I have them in the Final Four. I know that's what you were alluding to. But I think Purdue, I know they've been so inconsistent down the stretch. They've really struggled against some teams that aren't really that good. Struggled against Penn State in the Big Ten championship game, but I just don't know how anyone's going to guard this guy.
It's a very easy answer, and I can tell you, with my years of experience on this earth, the reason I know not to trust Purdue is because they go against the number one reason that teams win in the NCAA tournament. The teams that win in the tournament have elite guard play. That is not Purdue, and it has never been Purdue. You know what? The best Purdue team that made a run recently was to the Elite Eight, led by Carson Edwards.
Yeah, he was
so
awesome.
when Purdue had a great guard, they made a run. This year they don't have that. They have Foster Lawyer. They've got pieces. You know, Foster Lawyer's brothers. The better lawyer.
Yeah.
Someone say right. So they have pieces at the wings, but they don't have an elite guard this year. You know, to your point, they've had Isaac Harms before, you know, they've had, Caleb Swanigan. They've had elite big guys before.
Last year was really good.
So Purdue loves these Monstar-like big dudes, you know, that happens, but you got to have guards to win. They don't have that.
They haven't had a guy like this as a big. That's my only point.
Okay.
And the thing
they
is,
did last year, and they had Jaden Ivey.
But he wasn't as good as he was last year. Ivy's been great, but I think they were not a number one seed last year either.
No, of course not. But to your point, I think I would have rather had a team led by Jaden Ivey making a run, like Jaden Ivey and Zach Edey.
Right.
You know, on one team. That team didn't make a run. So give me a team with better guard play. To your point, when you say who's going to guard Zach Edey, probably no one. But then on the other end, if a team gets hot from three, who cares what Zach Edey's doing in the paint? If I'm knocking down threes, I'll trade your twos all day for that. Because Zach Edey's not going to step away and hit any jump shots. So if he scores 30 in the paint, but I'm hitting triples all day, I'll take that. You know?
I think the only other Big Ten team that could possibly go on a run, though, is the team of the guy who's not on the panel today. I think he's a little scared because of those golden flashes, but I think Indiana, I think they could go pretty far. I think, like I said, Trace Jackson Davis, one of the better players in the country. He's been awesome this year, and he's scoring like 25 points a game. He's been really good. So if he is able to get hot, why couldn't Indiana go on a run?
They got freshman guards with IU. If they can figure it out, which is hard to do in the NCAA tournament, counting on a freshman. But if those guys can stay locked in, then you're right. I really like Trace Jackson Davis, one of the best players in the country.
Jalen Hood-Schifino's really good
for
too.
sure. And the team is pretty well coached. I mean, Mike Woodson's done a phenomenal job at IU. So I think Indiana can make noise, but that's another team where, you know, your heart says, yeah, let's believe in Indiana. Your brain's like, I cannot trust this program.
Yeah.
Because they've been they haven't made a Final Four since 2002?
2001.
Yeah. So
a long time.
You know, it's been a while. Yeah, right. That's from that guard. You know, and speaking of bias, you know, I'm a Spartan. I went to Michigan State. I'm not picking MSU to beat USC. I think Michigan State's one and done. Some people think that they can make it to the second round and play Marquette, and then they'll probably be done there. I don't think they even beat USC because of the size differential on the wings. Plus, USC's got some big men, which has been Michigan State's Achilles heel all year long. Mady Sissoko's been getting bodied in the paint. I just don't see Tom Izzo's magic, you know, working this time around. But I could just be biased. You know, that's just me. That's how I see it.
I agree with you. I have Michigan State winning that game against USC, and it is literally on like emotion and adrenaline alone. You know, they're coming into this game obviously wanting to play for just a month ago.
Very much
shooting
so.
on campus. You know, I think they're going to want to show up and show out. I think they're going to have a lot of fans from around the country watching that game. People, you know, with interest. You know, of course the fun matchup between the Trojans and the Spartans. That's always a fun mascot matchup too. But I don't think there's any way they get past Marquette if they do beat USC. Again, I'm picking them to win that game, not confidently at all. I've not watched an MSU game this year that has told me this is a second weekend team. Like none. I've watched a lot of Michigan State basketball growing up. This is not a typical, you know, Tom Izzo team with a now as we talk about guard play. Best player on the team is Tyson Walker.
Got guards.
You know, they've got guards. They can get hot from three. It's all going to depend, I think, on Joey Hauser making shots. As you mentioned, if Mady Sissoko shows up and plays defense and is able to make some buckets in the paint, I do think they're able to get past USC. I think they got a bad draw in round two because Marquette is really strong.
Right.
I believe in Marquette very much. They absolutely in the Big East tournament handled Xavier in the final round, like by 20 points, like absolutely destroyed him. Xavier is a 3 seed. I really buy into Marquette, and I buy into Shaka Smart. Sorry, Mark. I think Texas maybe should look into hire this up-and-coming guy.
think so?
It's great, Shaka Smart.
Yeah. No, I really buy into him. I think he's got the experience, taking VCU all the way to a Final Four, too. I've got Marquette to my Final Four out of that bracket. And if we want to continue in that bracket, just as we're talking about Purdue, I got them bounced in over the weekend to Memphis in round 2. I think Memphis is a very good team. I think they've got what Purdue doesn't, which is great guards.
Yep.
I think as a 1 seed, Purdue got a really tough, a tough bracket here.
Yeah.
With Marquette, Kansas State, Tennessee, Memphis, and then Duke, even at the 5, who I think is underseeded.
The one thing I don't trust Penny Hardaway as a coach.
Yeah.
And listen, these are just small grievances, folks. These are NCAA tournament teams with really good players, and I'm just getting into the nitty-gritty that if Matt Painter and Penny Hardaway get into a battle of X's and O's, I think that's advantage Matt Painter, who's an underrated coach in the country to me.
Absolutely.
Because of the faults that his team keeps having in the NCAA tournament. Matt Painter is a phenomenal X's and O's guy. And, to Mark's point, I don't know who on that Memphis team would really stop, Zach Edey down low. I really like that matchup, but I don't think Penny Hardaway has figured out how to win in the NCAA tournament, let alone how to win regularly in the regular season on top of that.
Sure.
To your point, going back to what you said about that tough region, going back to Michigan State as well, I know, Mark, that you're a little bit more keen on the Spartans. There are 2 reasons why I think Michigan State could win. I don't think they will, but 2 reasons that factor into their favor. It's a 12 o'clock start time for a team and you playing in Southern California.
That's true.
That has to come to Columbus and play at 9 o'clock in the morning their time for an NCAA tournament game. That's going to be tough. The second thing is because the game's in Columbus, that's right smack, in the heart of Big Ten country. I don't think you're going to have Buckeye fans in Columbus rooting for Michigan State necessarily, but Michigan State fans can make the short trip to Columbus. I do expect a lot of Spartans to be in attendance at that game. So when you look at basically having a home court advantage and a great start time, that might help Michigan State.
I think Michigan State has a really good chance to go on a run. I have them winning 1 game. I have them beating USC and then falling to Marquette. But like Nate alluded to, as a Texas alum, I'm used to seeing Shaka Smart lose in the big dance.
Was that Shaka or was it Texas, though?
Well, both.
I think it was
it's been 2011 was when VCU went to the Final Four. That was a long time ago. I'm 12 years ago now. I mean, everyone talks about that like it was last year. But Texas, as a 3 seed in 2020, won the Big 12 tournament, then gets upset by Abilene Christian in the first round. That's unacceptable. And this is the same coach who's coaching Marquette. I think that Marquette could easily lose to Michigan State. I think also, you mentioned earlier, the tragedy obviously was terrible on Michigan State's campus, but a lot of people, it seems their games kind of lift up during tragedy. Obviously, Michigan State lost to the Wolverines right after they played, but then they won that emotional game in Indiana, and I think there's going to be a lot of emotions riding high. And you think one thing that I always point to when or cities that have gone through tragedy, places that have gone through tragedy, when the Boston Marathon bombing happened, the Red Sox were the worst team in baseball the previous year, went on to win the World Series in 2013. So I think Michigan State could easily go on a run. I know you pointed out that you think it's a tough draw, that tough bracket. I think it's the weakest region by far. I think Purdue's the weakest 1 seed. I think K-State's a little bit overrated. So I could see Michigan State potentially going on a run to the Elite 8, potentially to the Final Four. I don't think it's going to happen. I'm just saying there's a chance.
There's always a chance.
March Madness, you never know.
I want to speak to a region of the country that you two know very well. Mark has already said he went to Texas. Yeah. Nate went to Oklahoma State. His team's in the NIT. They're not in the NCAA tournament.
Hey, number 1 overall seed. You guys aren't that.
His team's a big deal in the NIT.
We're the 2 seed.
But what these 2 guys think, I think they know a lot about Big 12 basketball and Southern basketball. They know a lot about Kansas. They know a lot about K-State. They know about Texas A&M. They know about Texas. But the best team in the southern part of the country to me isn't Alabama, it's Houston.
Really?
I think the Cougars are the best team in the NCAA tournament. That's my pick to win it all because when you talk about elite guard play, Houston has it. When you talk about a well-rounded team, Houston has it. Yeah. I really like the tempo that they play at. I don't think a lot of teams are going to want to see the Cougars. They've got athleticism to spare. That's my pick, and I understand that we can mention some of these other teams. We talk about Kansas always makes a run. Texas looks really good this year. The best team in the state of Texas is the Houston Cougars, and that's how I look at it.
Well, they play in a weak conference. And I think they are good, and I am worried about them. And I think one thing that really works in their favor, too, the Final Four is in Houston this year.
Boom.
So it's like,
you just
hey,
got to get there, right?
What kind of motivation is that? And it's also, I mean, this is kind of just a fanboy me. Jim Nantz, he's the announcer for all the March Madness games, for the big games. He's a Houston grad, and this is his last Final Four. So it'd be kind of cool if Houston won it all in his last go at it. But Houston, they've struggled against some teams, struggled against Memphis in the big or in the conference championship game there, and I just think, I don't know, they're well coached. I think they can make a run. They have a lot of athletes on the roster, but I just think their schedule wasn't as strong as someone like Texas's or Indiana's or Purdue's or Bama. I mean, I just think it just wasn't on par.
I think Houston is a very good team. They've got 2 guys that are going to go in the first round of the NBA draft. Marcus Sasser, I cannot remember what their forward's name is. Great players. My concern with Houston is that, again, they've put up all these great numbers. They've played 2 top 25 teams all year. And they went 1-1. So I think that's great. And again, I don't necessarily buy into the strength of schedule, too much. Again, because I like.
If you're good, you're good.
Exactly. Yeah. And they pass the eye test. You watch them play. They're a great team. I do have them to the Elite Eight.
Same.
I have them falling to Mark's Texas Longhorns, unfortunately. But
unfortunately.
Yeah. Sorry.
What is that supposed to mean?
Sorry, I do. Hey, you know what it means. But yeah, I have a couple upsets in this region. One of my 5-12. I think I got 2 5-12s, but in this region, I like Drake over Miami in that first round. I think Drake is a really good 3-point shooting team, and that, again, as we've alluded to, huge in the tournament.
Just get hot.
I very nearly took Drake to beat Indiana in the second round as well, just because Indiana struggles against 3-point shooting teams. We've seen it happen this year, others in this round, I got, like I said, Penn State over A&M in that one, and I know it would be very fun to have the Texas and A&M game in the second round, which is a very real possibility. I like Penn State. They're very hot right now. Iowa State coming out, I think, is going to be tough with Xavier in the second round if both of those teams make it. I think Pitt may give Iowa State trouble after Pitt made it out of the first 4.
Pitt looks good.
A lot of times we see those first 4 teams come in and win
UCLA,
1 or 2 games.
UCLA last year, first 4 in, beats Michigan State, goes on to the Final Four.
Final Four, a couple years ago. The first 4, VCU, I'm pretty sure when they made it to the Final Four, came out of the first 4. So I think Pitt, if I were to pick any of those first 4 teams, they would be the one that I think. But again, I'm me, I'm a Big 12 guy, so I got Iowa State in that one. But I think they give Xavier trouble in the second round. But yeah, Texas-Houston is my Elite Eight there, and I think Texas is. I think they come out on top there.
I got Houston beating Texas. I think that's a close game. Plus, I think that's going to be a great, not necessarily rivalry game. I think a lot of people are going to love that game. The players are going to love it. Fans are going to be just after blood in that one.
Houston fans are still sick that Tom Herman left for Austin, but I think they're probably glad with that outcome now. But they should be.
I think you're glad that he left.
I'm still upset about it. But I think one thing that I always notice in tournaments, we always pick that 12-5 upset. You mentioned that earlier, but there's always been a team that goes into the tournament red hot, wins their conference tournament, and then loses in the first round. We saw that last year with Iowa. We saw that 2 years ago with Texas, like I mentioned, the Abilene Christian. I think this year, Duke's been red hot. They've won a lot of games in a row.
I like this one.
I've got Oral Roberts winning, and maybe that's a little bit biased because I saw them beat Ohio State as a 15 seed back in 2021. And maybe it's just like the Butler brain in my head wanting another kind of Butler type of run. But I have Oral Roberts going to the Sweet 16. That's kind of my one Cinderella.
I like Oral Roberts a lot. I love Max Abmas, one of the best players in the country. That dude can shoot with Steph Curry all day. Most confusing last name in the world. A-B-M-A-S, pronounced Asmus. Don't understand it, but good for him. He was amazing, when they had their upset a few years ago. He killed it. They did lose some players since then. They had a forward that was really good. He transferred to Texas Tech. Can't remember his name to save my life right now. But they've got a really tall center. They got like a 7'2" center that transferred in. I think they are going to give Duke fits. I do, however, think Duke is underseeded as a 5, so I still have them.
I think Oral Roberts is underseeded as a 12.
I think
that's fair.
Oral Roberts destroyed North Dakota State in the Summit League championship game. North Dakota State obviously, had scrapped to get there, a little bit of as a younger team. But I don't think Oral Roberts has lost since December or something like that.
17 games in a row.
Yeah.
So when you're hot, you're hot. And
Yeah.
if you're 117, you're looking at Duke, and you don't care about the name on the front of the jersey. Coach K is not there anymore, so that giant on the sideline doesn't loom as large.
Absolutely.
I don't think Oral Roberts is afraid of Duke. That's a great upset, and it's not 12-5. I think Providence over Kentucky is another one. You spoke to the SEC
that's
being
possible,
great,
yeah.
but I think Providence is a really good team,
always a good
led
team.
by a Kentucky transfer, no less.
Yeah.
So that's a team that's going to know, Coach Cal ins and
Always a
outs,
good
and
team.
I think that's right. Always a good squad. That's my second upset. I think it's an 11-6. But I like Providence over Kentucky. I like Oral Roberts over Duke. I think that's a really good pick.
Yeah.
To your point, I agree that Oral Roberts has size and guard play, but they're still, I understand the skepticism there.
Yeah.
I think those are probably the two most popular upsets in the tournament.
Well, I've got my other 5-12 here is Charleston over San Diego State in the first round. I think San Diego State is a great team. They always are. Love to watch them play.
Kawhi Leonard's not on this team.
No, not anymore. But Charleston they won 30 games in the regular season.
Yep.
And I know they don't play anybody, but you don't win 30 games by not being a good team.
No.
And they, again, another one of those teams that just shoots the lights out. I got Charleston to the Sweet 16 beating Virginia in the second round. I think Virginia could lose to Furman in that first game. I would take Virginia. But
Paladins.
Yeah, I think
I wouldn't be surprised with that either.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a fun one to watch. That 5-12 between Charleston, San Diego State, and then the 4-13 Virginia Furman. I think that will be a good game as well.
We're going to wrap it up here pretty soon. I want to get your guys' thoughts on this. Speaking of the upsets you're mentioning, right? Tom Izzo said in his press conference this week, going back in the day when he started as a head coach, basically any time between 1995 and 2005, if you were facing a double-digit seed, it was almost automatic that you were making it to the second weekend of the tournament. If you were 1, 2, or 3 seed, it was automatic, guaranteed, just about, that you were going to make it to at least the Sweet 16. Tom Izzo said that that's just how it was. Yeah, you still had to play the games, but upsets were so rare because the disparity in talent was so large. Now he says the gap is closed, and he doesn't know if it's closed from the bottom or if it's shrunk from the top. But either way, he goes, the disparity now between 1 and 16, especially after Virginia lost to a 16 seed. 2 seeds are losing all the time. Michigan State famously lost to Middle Tennessee State as a 2 seed.
Kentucky just lost last year.
I think Florida Gulf Coast was a 14 seed when they beat Duke. Duke's lost to teams,
Mercer.
Mercer was
Florida
a 3-4
Gulf Coast
team.
was Georgetown.
So these upsets are happening so frequently now that it's not guaranteed that these higher seeded teams are going to make this run. So while we're all searching for these upsets, I think they become more of the norm.
Yeah.
And Izzo basically just said the talent is so much different in college basketball. We mentioned a Kentucky transfer playing for Providence. There's
Right.
a big time transfer playing at Oral Roberts.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, you look at those guys. That's why I think there's so much parity in this tournament. And that's why I think it's so hard to pick these brackets.
Oh, it's impossible to pick these brackets. I've never gotten a champion right. That's all I want is to pick a champion right.
On
Yeah.
TV.
No, it's been bad.
Right, fair.
But I think anyone can win. And if you have one cold night in the tournament, you're likely done. And you can get lucky and and win on a cold shooting night. But odds are, if you shoot cold, you're going to be done. And that's what we saw last year when St. Peter's beat Kentucky. And then we saw, like we mentioned, Oral Roberts beat Ohio State. 15 seeds have won in the last 2 years. It's never happened 3 years in a row. So it probably won't happen this year, but you never know. And that's what makes this the best tournament in sports.
Absolutely. So we want to talk Final Fours real quick.
I got Houston obviously in the Final Four. I got Houston winning the whole thing. I think you got Purdue in your Final Four.
You keep mentioning that.
I'm going to go back to that all day.
I got Purdue, Alabama, Texas, and Gonzaga. I think Gonzaga's been really good, obviously, lately. Been to a couple Final Fours recently, national championship a few years ago against Baylor. So I got them going to the Final Four. Drew Timme, again, I like to pick one of the best players in the country. Yeah. So he's really good. But I've got Bama versus Texas in the national championship game. A little bit of a revenge for football, but I got Alabama winning it all.
So I have speaking to Gonzaga, I have them bounced this weekend.
Oh, really?
I've got them lost to TCU in round 2. I like the Frogs this year. I think it's the Frogs year, man.
Frogs.
I like the Frogs in football this year with the upset.
Yeah,
You called it. I like them in basketball. I've watched them play a few times this year. They've got great guard. Mike Miles, one of the most underrated guards in the country. Watch that dude play. He's awesome. But my Final Four, I got Alabama as well, playing Marquette. Other side of the bracket, I have the Longhorns in a Big 12 rematch with Kansas. And then I have for the first time since Florida, repeat champs in Kansas this year.
Okay.
I think Jalen Wilson.
Even with Bill Self kind of on the mend.
I think that they'll want to play hard for him too.
That's true.
But I think Jalen Wilson on their team is one of the bbest players in the country. That dude's lights out. Grady Dick, lights out 3-point shooter, which again comes into play here.
And Terry Ellis is back for his 10th year.
5 million years. He's back riding his dinosaur into the tournament. So
I don't know when Bama goes down. I can't pick that. I've struggled on when, but it's going to happen. I got Arizona coming out of that region. I think that's a team that, of course, knows how to win in March. Looking at the East region, I know you're high on Marquette.
Yeah.
I think the upset in that one, I like Kansas State coming out of the East. Speaking of being a big 12 guy, really good Kansas State
really
team.
Underrated team.
I think K-State's the 3 seed that comes out of the East. I like Houston, as I mentioned, to come out of that seed. Sorry to Texas. And I got to go with Kansas, coming out of their region, because I know a lot of people are going to pick Gonzaga. Kansas is Kansas. And I mean, they win the Big 12 every year, but they're battle tested in the NCAA tournament. And like you just said, back-to-back, people know that Kansas is a team that's going to make a run. However, once you get into the Final Four and Houston has to play Kansas in Houston, I like the Cougars in that matchup. Yeah. I'm going to go with the hometown team. You mentioned the Nance thing. I mentioned just Houston having a chance to win a national championship in their own city would be a phenomenal story. I got the Cougars winning the whole thing. So my pick is Houston. I don't think that'll be a popular pick for a lot of brackets, but that'd be a nice story, I think. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, it worked out very well when Michigan State was in the title game in Detroit.
Yeah, so. I mean, that was perfect. Right? But to Mark's earlier credit, when he talked about how sometimes, we talked about the Red Sox rallying after the Boston Marathon bombing, Michigan State, or the state of Michigan, was going through an economic downturn at that point in time. Like 2008, 2009 was a really tough time in the state. And Tom Izzo basically said, I just want to give people something to smile about. So the fact that they went to the Final Four in Detroit.
And they had the unfortunate task of running into maybe the greatest college basketball team of all time.
And I was going to say,
North Carolina
they
in the title game.
They still beat a UConn team that had Hasheem Thabeet, Stanley Price, like that guard, A.J. Price. That team had NBA talent too. So they won a game, and then in the national championship played against a team that had 45 NBA talent.
The entire
NBA
starting five went to the NBA.
A Hall of Fame head coach. I mean, come on, what are you going to do?
2009 last time MSU played USC. They beat them, the only time ever played.
Did. That game was in Minneapolis. That was the Travis Walton game. He had a big game against
Travis
Walton,
man. The defense on that, dude.
Jeez. So that's our picks. Let's see if you can do better. Chances are you will.
I'm better than him.
We'll be breaking down the NCAA tournament as we go. We'll be back to talk to you about the Sweet 16, the Elite 8 matchups next week.